Hello, my name is Keir Cutler, and I'd like to talk to you about William Shakespeare. More specifically, I'd like to talk to you about the Shakespeare Authorship question and an interesting document called the Declaration of Reasonable Doubt about the identity of William Shakespeare. As you may have heard, there's an ongoing debate as to whether the great plays and poems were in fact written by William Shakespeare of Stratford upon Avon. You may have also heard the debate is groundless and should be ignored. I spent many years studying theater. I don't recall anyone ever expressing any doubt about Shakespeare's authorship. Then, some years after graduating, I decided to look into the debate. I wanted to write a one-man comedy show about what I assumed was a wild conspiracy theory, poking fun at those who held the nonsensical view that Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare. But instead, I found there's good reason for all the doubts. I was astonished to learn there are no plays, poems, or even any letters in Shakespeare's own hand. Perhaps all the manuscripts of the plays and poems were lost or discarded, but no letters. Why was I never told this? Shakespeare was not only a great writer, he was a brilliant scholar. His works include extensive knowledge of law, philosophy, classical literature, ancient and modern history, art, astronomy, mathematics, music, medicine, military and naval terminology, English, French, and Italian court life, a virtual encyclopedia of knowledge. How could Shakespeare have learned so much about so many subjects without corresponding with others? And he divided his time between London and Stratford, a situation that called for correspondence. Well, he must have written dozens of letters, maybe hundreds. How could every last letter ever written by Shakespeare have been lost? And what about books? Virtually all of Shakespeare's plays are based on other works, many not yet translated into English at the time. Well, he must have had an extensive library that included these source works. But once again, no. Not a single book belonging to Shakespeare has ever been found. Books were valuable possessions back then. What happened to all of Shakespeare's books? So no play, no poem, no letter in Shakespeare's own hand, and no book belonging to Shakespeare or that's known to have been in his possession. In fact, Shakespeare's long and detailed will, which we do have, makes no mention of his being a writer and no mention of any possession that suggests in any way that he was. Why was I never told this? But wait, what about Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I? Now, we've all seen movies where Elizabeth adores Shakespeare's plays and talks to him about them. Or did she? Contrary to the popular perception that Shakespeare became a prominent public figure, there's no record Elizabeth I ever met Shakespeare or spoke or wrote his name. And if anyone ever spoke to Shakespeare about his writing or anything in any of his plays, there's no record of that either. In fact, no one seems to have thought of Shakespeare of Stratford as a poet or a playwright during his lifetime. And when he died in 1616, no one seemed to notice. As Mark Twain wrote in his work, Is Shakespeare Dead? Shakespeare is the best known unknown person that has ever drawn breath upon the planet. Mark Twain doubted that Shakespeare wrote the works, as did other great writers and thinkers. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Walt Whitman, William and Henry James, Sigmund Freud, and actors Orson Welles, John Gielgud, Derek Jacobi, Michael York, Jeremy Irons, Vanessa Redgrave, and Mark Rylance, the founding artistic director of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, to name a few. Why was I never told this? The main reason why I was never told any of these startling facts about William Shakespeare is that most Shakespeare scholars say there's no doubt who wrote the works. They claim there's no legitimate controversy, and most teachers understandably accept this. With all due respect, there's many who disagree. In addition to the writers, thinkers, and actors I've already mentioned, there are Supreme Court justices, hundreds of academics, and even a growing number of English professors, many of whom have signed the Declaration of Reasonable Doubt. If Shakespeare is so important that almost everyone studies his great plays and poems, then he's important enough for us to know there's doubt about who he really was. We should all know some basic facts about this fascinating topic. So I invite you now to read the Declaration of Reasonable Doubt about the identity of William Shakespeare. The Declaration provides a brief but definitive overview of the evidence and arguments for and against Shakespeare of Stratford as the author. Nearly 36 Shakespeare scholars helped write it, and even some supporters of the Stratford man have praised it. Consider the Declaration carefully, and if you agree with it, please join me in adding your signature. If you do, you'll be in good company, as seen by the online list of those who have signed. By signing the Declaration, you won't be claiming to know what happened so long ago, who wrote the great works, nor even that William Shakespeare of Stratford definitely did not. Individual signers can have different views about the author. you'll simply be saying that the identity of William Shakespeare should be regarded as a legitimate issue in academia and a suitable topic for instruction and discussion in classrooms. Because there is room for doubt. Reasonable doubt by reasonable people. What you see here is a limited edition poster of the Declaration for use in signing ceremonies and suitable for display in educational and cultural institutions. But the Declaration can also be read and signed online at the website of the Shakespeare Authorship Coalition at doubtaboutwill.org. Again, that's doubtaboutwill.org.